We are so excited today. We have an artist, Gavin Glakas, and he is an artist that you're going to know that through his story, he found art not just maybe as a career option, but maybe as a turning point. Is that right, Gavin?
That is right.
Awesome. Well, welcome to Divine Insights, and
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you
you for
so
having
much.
me. It's nice to be with you today.
Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your insights as an artist and creator.
I loved to draw when I was a kid, I, that was always sort of the number one thing in my life was drawing. And then as I got a little older, painting. I just loved art, and I was planning to be a professional artist or a professional football player, um, but that didn't even come close to working out. So of my two plans, only one was even conceivably possible. And so I had planned to become a professional artist. And then when the time came to apply to colleges, I had just had enough people tell me that you couldn't make it as an artist, and there was sort of no point in pursuing a career as an artist. So um, I thought that I would keep it as a hobby and do something else. And for the next about 6 years or so, I didn't do a lot of painting. I did a little bit. I minored in art in college, but my plan was always to do something else, maybe go to law school. And I the whole time um, I felt terrible about myself because I didn't have the courage to pursue the one thing that I wanted to do. Um, so when I was about to turn 24, I was working in an office, and I I decided to quit my job and to get a job at an art gallery and to pursue art professionally, to find some classes to take. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but my plan was to try and pursue art professionally. What happened was, within a month of making that decision and telling my parents and I think my boss, I got very sick. And I spent about the next 6 months in and out of the hospital and having procedures and a few surgeries. And I was very scared. It wasn't cancer, but at the time I didn't know that. I just knew that the doctors were telling me that it might be cancer. Um, and as a 23, 24-year-old kid, I was really scared during that period. And it was sort of that fear and that time of thinking about what was really important in my life that really gave me the courage to pursue art full time. So I was incredibly fortunate. I got this major lifetime epiphany at a young age and recovered completely. I was able to, they took a tumor out of my lung. They told me afterwards that it was benign. And I got a job at an art gallery. I found some great artists to study with, and I was off and running. And to a large degree, I have that experience to thank for it.
That is amazing. And what a uh, what a difficult moment for you, but how beautiful it was that you had the courage and you understood this is the time where I need to move on and follow that dream. Yeah.
It was a really it was an incredible experience. And one of the things about it that was sort of so life affirming is that um, I was surrounded by so much love and support. My whole family, my parents and my brother and my aunts and uncles and my cousins and all of my friends. And it seemed this is sort of before the internet. This is at the end of the 90s. The internet existed, but there was no social media or anything like that. And somehow everybody found out about it and everybody supported me, and that support extended into when I became an artist. So when I recovered from my final surgery and sort of let the world know that I was going to head out and seek my fame and fortune as an artist, um, people were coming out of the woodwork to help me. My friends would help me set up my sidewalk shows, and people would bring their parents to my shows and have them buy a painting or commission a painting. And there was the feeling of love and support that was around me to a large degree because I went through a very unpleasant experience. I'll never forget that. Well, when I started out professionally, when I started out attempting to become a professional artist, I loved portraits and I loved the contemporary portraits that I would see in portrait museums and even the paintings in the hospital or in universities or things like that. And so I thought to myself, well, maybe if I practice a lot, I can become a portrait painter and a figure painter. And I thought maybe I'd paint portraits and then paint figure paintings for galleries or maybe illustrate books. I mean, that lets you know how long ago I'm talking about, back when books were illustrated with oil paints. And at a certain point, I really fell in love with painting landscapes as well, and not just landscapes, but cityscapes, and sort of painting the human experience, um, uh, and the things that we built and the society in which we live. And I've been very fortunate to be able to kind of go back and forth between painting portraits, which I absolutely love, and painting landscapes and cityscapes, which I also love. And it's nice they both help me with the other one. Painting landscapes helps me paint better portraits, and painting portraits helps me paint better landscapes. And they're really interesting ways to solve sort of the same problems in completely different ways. So that's where I started and where I am now.
So I got a question. I watched an interview that where you were speaking about how you discovered that your passion for art doesn't really mean that you were just painting and go from there, but that you needed to develop that those skills. Can you tell me a little bit about that process?
Yeah, I think there's sort of a notion amongst lay people and civilians that one is, born with talent or not born with talent. And I think it's a lot more like learning anything, learning a language or learning a musical instrument, where you may have an interest and maybe an inclination in that direction. Um, but one has to go through the process of actually learning how to do it the same way you would if you wanted to learn to play the piano. And when people ask me about this, artists seem to understand this, but when non-artists ask me about this, I phrase it like this. I think that Mozart and I could probably take piano lessons with the same teacher and practice the same amount of time every single week, and he'd probably wind up being a better piano player than me. But I could still learn to play the piano, and anybody can learn how to draw or paint. And to a large extent, I think it's the act of learning and the process of sort of, working at something and improving and and learning that is so exciting. And then, maybe I spent more time practicing than people who just do it as a hobby. But the process of learning, I think, will never end for me or for any other artist. I teach a couple classes, and there are some people in my classes who are of a pretty advanced age who are still learning and who are still sharp and excited to be there. I think that that's kind of a part of life that I hope will always be one of the most important for me.
Totally agree with you. One of the reasons why I do these Divine Insights is because I had, through the years, as I design every program, I'm an artist, I paint, I do jewelry, mixed media. Usually people around me that are not, or they think they're not creative or artistic, they ask me like, how do you do it? Like, where do the ideas come from? And for me, it's like, well, everything around me is like, I can come up with a million ideas. I just don't have enough time. So I thought how interesting it will be to talk to other artists and getting to the insights of that creative spirit and how the process, what type of process they follow. So that was one of the reasons to kind of like initiate these conversations with artists and that patients and generally people tell me, I love it because, it just is a simple conversation. I don't have to be an artist to understand the concept, but I understand more about the creative process. So I love that. I
Right.
totally agree with you. Okay, so you went to school for art,
I minored in art in
a
college,
minor in art.
and
Okay.
then I got a job working at an art gallery, and I took art classes 2 days a week. So on Thursdays and Fridays, I would take art class for 5 or 6 hours a day, and that went on for years. So I studied for about 5 or 6 years after college. I started working at this art gallery. A year later, they started selling my paintings. It was a very, just fortunately, just miraculously, it was a very successful gallery. And they started selling my paintings very regularly. So I was able to essentially become a professional artist while I was in art school. So I got to take classes for 5 or 6 years. And I had two great teachers, and I really learned a lot. And then I learned a lot about sort of how to make a career of it, working in this gallery and being present in there a lot. And it was a great way for me to learn and to kind of get started.
That is amazing. So, your family, were they super supportive, as you mentioned? I think your dad has a quote there that says, like, if you love what you do, you will make money.